The first time I noticed the ring, I almost laughed. It wasn't because it looked expensive. It wasn't because it sparkled. It was because I knew every piece of jewelry my wife owned. I had bought most of it over the year's birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas mornings when the kids were still little enough to believe wrapping paper was magic. That ring wasn't one of them. She was rinsing coffee mugs at the sink when the afternoon sun caught the thin gold band on her right hand. Simple, elegant, worn like it had belonged there forever. Since when do you have that? I asked without thinking. She barely glanced at it. This? I've had it for ages. Something about the answer felt rehearsed. I smiled anyway. Married people don't interrogate each other over jewelry, right? At least that's what I believed back then. We had been together long enough that surprises weren't supposed to exist anymore. We had routines, inside jokes, grocery lists on the refrigerator, arguments about whose turn it was to drive our daughter to soccer practice. Life wasn't exciting. It was safe. Or at least I thought it was. Looking back now, I can pinpoint dozens of moments that should have bothered me. At the time, every single one had a reasonable explanation. She started locking her phone. She said work had become stressful. She stayed later at the office. There was always another meeting, another project, another client. I never questioned it because I trusted her completely. Trust becomes dangerous when you've been together for years. You stop checking. You stop asking. You assume the person sleeping beside you is still the same person you married. She became strangely protective of that ring. Sometimes she'd twist it around her finger absent-mindedly while staring into space. Once I joked, "You're treating that thing like it's priceless." She smiled, but it never reached her eyes. It means something to me. I remember thinking that was an odd choice of words. Not "I like it," not "it's pretty." It means something. I should have asked what. Instead, I kissed her forehead, grabbed my keys, and went to work, convinced that marriages survived because people didn't overthink every little detail. About a week later, I saw the ring again. Not at home. At the grocery store. She didn't know I was there. I had stopped after work to pick up milk because she'd texted me that she'd forgotten. I turned into the produce aisle and saw her standing with a man I'd never met. They weren't holding hands. They weren't kissing. They were just talking. But then he reached for her hand. Not in a romantic movie kind of way. It was casual, familiar, like he'd done it 100 times before. His thumb brushed over the ring. She smiled. It wasn't the smile she gave neighbors or co-workers. It was softer, warmer, the kind of smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. I ducked behind a display of oranges before either of them noticed me. I stood there like an idiot, convincing myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe he was family. Maybe it was work. Maybe I was losing my mind. When I got home, she acted completely normal. "So how was your day?" she asked. I looked at her hand. The ring was gone. "I've had better," I answered. She studied my face for a second, then quietly changed the subject. For the first time in our marriage, I wondered if the woman across the dinner table was hiding an entire life from me. That night I barely slept. Every memory started rearranging itself. Late meetings, weekend conferences, phone calls she took outside, the way she'd started wearing perfume even on days she claimed she was working from home. None of it had seemed important before. Now every little detail felt like a piece of a puzzle I never wanted to solve. The next morning I asked as casually as I could, "Who's Daniel?" Her head snapped up. "What? I saw the name pop up on your phone yesterday." That was a lie. I'd picked the name because I'd overheard the man in the grocery store introducing himself to the cashier. For a split second, panic crossed her face. Then it disappeared. "Oh, a client," she answered too quickly. "And the ring?" She froze. "What about it? You never told me where it came from." She looked down at her coffee. "I bought it years ago." "Really?" "Yes." "Then why did you tell me you'd had it forever when I'd never seen it?" Silence. It lasted only a few seconds, but it felt endless. Finally she whispered, "You're making a big deal out of nothing." Maybe I was. Or maybe I had just asked the one question she couldn't answer. I wish I could say I confronted her immediately. I didn't. Instead, I became someone I never thought I'd be. I started paying attention to everything. Receipts, calendar entries, the mileage on her car, the time stamps on on text messages she claimed were from coworkers. I hated myself for it. Every day I told myself I was done looking for proof. Every day I looked anyway. Then one Friday she forgot her tablet at home. It lit up while she was in the shower upstairs. A message appeared on the screen. "I miss seeing your ring. It reminds me of our promise." My stomach dropped, not because of the words, because there was no room left for innocent explanations. I didn't unlock the device. I didn't need to. She came downstairs, saw the tablet in my hands, and turned pale. "What did you read?" "Enough." She reached for it. I stepped back. For the first time in 15 years together, silence felt louder than shouting. She cried before I even asked a question. "I'm sorry." Those two words shattered me more than any confession could have. Sorry for what? She covered her face. "I never wanted you to find out like this." "Find out what?" I kept waiting for her to say it. Instead, she kept apologizing. I finally snapped. "Tell me the truth." She whispered his name. "Daniel, the same man from the grocery store. He gave you the ring?" She nodded without looking at me. "It wasn't supposed to mean what you think." I laughed. A horrible, empty laugh. What exactly am I supposed to think when my wife wears another man's ring? She couldn't answer. She only cried harder. That somehow hurt even more. Because guilty people cry differently. The whole story came out in pieces. They'd met through work nearly 2 years earlier. It started with lunches, then long conversations, then messages after midnight. She insisted nothing physical happened for months. I don't know if that's true. Maybe she was trying to protect me. Maybe herself. "The ring wasn't an engagement ring," she said. "It was a promise." A promise of what? She looked away. That one day we'd stop pretending. I felt like the floor disappeared. "So while we were planning our daughter's birthday," she nodded. "You were planning another life?" More silence. I remember walking into the backyard because I couldn't breathe inside the house. Our daughter was inside doing homework. Our son was upstairs playing video games. Neither of them had any idea their family had just split in half. The kids noticed before we told them. Children always do. We stopped eating dinner together. She slept in the guest room. Every conversation sounded like a business meeting. "Who's picking up our son? What time is the parent conference? Did you pay the electric bill?" Everything except the one conversation that mattered. One evening my daughter asked me quietly, "Did you and Mom have a fight?" I smiled. "Just grown-up stuff." She looked unconvinced. "You don't smile with your eyes anymore." That sentence stayed with me. I started avoiding mirrors because I knew she was right. I looked exhausted, older, like someone had quietly replaced me with another version that carried invisible weight everywhere he went. Eventually, I asked the question I had been avoiding. "Do you love him?" She answered too fast. "I don't know." Wrong answer. If she had said no, maybe I could have believed it. If she had said yes, at least it would have been honest. "I don't know" meant she was still deciding, and somehow that hurt more than being rejected. "So I'm competing with someone. I never wanted it to become this, but it did." She nodded. Then she said something I'll never forget. "I still love you, just differently." Differently. One word erased years of anniversaries, vacations, late-night talks, hospital visits, and ordinary Tuesdays that I thought meant something. I realized memories don't disappear. They simply change shape. Our families got involved almost immediately. My brother wanted me to leave her. Her sister begged me to forgive. Everyone had advice. Almost nobody had answers. She ended things with Daniel. At least that's what she told me. She even took the ring off in front of me. I don't want it anymore. She dropped it onto the kitchen table. I stared at it. It looked so ordinary. Amazing how something so small could destroy so much. "Throw it away," she whispered. I couldn't, not because I wanted it, because I never wanted to touch it again. We tried counseling for months. Some sessions ended in tears. Others ended in silence. The therapist kept asking about rebuilding trust. I wanted to know how. Nobody could explain it. Trust isn't furniture. You can't glue it back together and pretend nobody notices the cracks. I wanted to forgive her. I truly did. Some mornings I'd wake up believing we still had a chance. Then I'd remember the message. Or the grocery store, or that ring, and everything collapsed again. She was trying. I could see that. The tragedy was that effort arrived after certainty had already died. We finally told the kids. It was the hardest conversation of my life. We agreed not to tell them every detail. They didn't need to carry our mistakes. Our son cried openly. My daughter didn't. She just became quieter. Weeks later she asked me, Was it because of someone else? Kids notice more than adults think. I didn't answer directly. I simply told her, sometimes adults make choices they can't undo. She nodded. I could tell she already knew. That realization broke my heart almost as much as everything that came before. I moved into a small apartment across town. The first night was unbearable. No familiar sounds. No family photos on the walls. No one asking where I'd left the TV remote. Just silence. People talk about missing the big moments. For me, it was the tiny ones. Making coffee for two, hearing her laugh from another room, arguing over what movie to watch. Those ordinary habits don't disappear overnight. They hunt you. Sometimes I'd reach for my phone to text her about something funny before remembering. We weren't that couple anymore. Grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's simply realizing you have nobody to tell about your day. More than a year has passed. We're civil now. Birthdays, graduations, school events. We stand together for the kids, then go our separate ways. I've started rebuilding my life. Slowly. Some days are good, others aren't. I've dated once or twice, but I catch myself watching people's hands, looking for rings, wondering who gave them. It's embarrassing how one object rewired my brain. I don't hate her anymore. Hate requires energy. What remains is sadness for the life we almost kept. Sometimes I wonder whether she'd made a different choice if I'd asked about the ring one more time. Then I remind myself that a marriage isn't destroyed by a single question. It's damaged by the secrets that make the question necessary. People often ask when I knew my marriage was over. They expect me to mention the text message, or the confession, or the counseling that failed. The truth is stranger than that. It was the ring. Not because it was expensive. Not because another man bought it. Because she wore it every day while looking me in the eyes, sharing meals with me, laughing with our children, and telling me everything was fine. The ring became a symbol of two realities existing at once. The life I believed I was living, and the life she had already started building without me. I still think about that afternoon when sunlight hit the gold band for the first time. If I'd ignored it completely, maybe I would have stayed happy a little longer. But happiness built on a lie isn't peace. It's borrowed time. And sometimes the smallest thing, a simple ring you never gave your wife, is enough to unravel an entire life.